Hello, Twitch and or YouTube. Thank you for tuning into my stream. Today I'm going to be doing more of the same stuff that I normally do. That is TypeScript-ESLint open source maintenance. I am looking forward to it though because I feel like I've been out for a while. I had to miss my last stream for a conference. It was Strange Loop. It was a very good conference, but I want more code in my life. Thus, I shall be coding today. Code TypeScript-ESLint. Now I'll try to remember to repeat this through the stream, but feel free to ask questions, make complaints, talk to me about whatever developer area or not, things that are on your mind. As you can see, I've got no GitHub notifications, which is an amazing place to be. But that's because we have some pull requests and stuff that I just saw and then dismissed. But I'm going to be looking through these things today. The first pull request I'm going to go through is one that's been sitting for a little while, and I'd hoped Brad, one of the other maintainers, could look at it because Brad has a lot of contextual information. That would be good here, but I don't want this person's PR to be sitting for quite so long. So I'm going to take a look at it now. I will say also, if any of this stuff is new to you, that's totally okay. There's this great tour de source article we wrote with SourceGraph that'll get you ramped up real nice and quick on the fundamentals of what I'm working on the stream today. Things like, how does a linter work? Like, what are the rules definitions going to look like when you write your own? And how does TypeScript-ESLint work with that? A lot of great stuff. But before I do any work, one of the most important things is tweeting. Because Twitter presence is important. So I'm going to tweets. And first up, who sent this pull request? One of our old friends. They've contributed before. See if they have a Twitter. All right, no Twitter, so just boop, posting the tweets. And I'll post it in the Twitch chat too. All right. What are we looking at here? Enhancement, prefer optional chain, suggests not foo or not foo.bar as a valid match for the rule. This is an issue that I remember we had previously merged a PR to fix, but we had to revert that PR that fixed this before I dive into what it actually is, because there was a crash. Where was that crash documented? Is it referenced in the original pull request, maybe? Here we go. All right, this was the crash. So original PR, boop, crash, boop. All right. What is this issue asking for? We have this rule, prefer optional chain, that I'm going to post in the chat also. Lots of chat stuff. That says if you have code that doesn't use the optional chaining operator, a (b) (c), and so on, stuff that looks like this, then the rule will suggest that you use optional chaining instead. This is not going to catch too many bugs, but it's a very nice rule because optional chaining is awesome and not all code bases fully use it yet. Dope. The rule, or the issue rather, for the rule suggested that we also look at logical inverses. Like this, not foo or not foo.bar could be reduced to not foo (bar). And again, they had previously sent in a pull request that did add that option to the rule, but unfortunately it crashed for some users with error, unexpected member object type, TS non-null expression. So we had to revert that PR. So this pull request reopen. Wait, where is it? Where is the new PR? Here we go. This pull request 5594, the one I originally posted in the chat, has the same as the previous pull request, but should fix this non-null expression issue. And the repro for that issue is... Where's the repro for the issue? All right, the line, well, they have a line where it fails. All right, so the line where it fails is like this. If not entity.helper.initialized or options.refresh. So, okay. So what we need to make sure then is that in this new pull request, there is some test code somewhere that looks like this. I'll zoom in a few times. There should be a test somewhere that checks that this kind of code, oof, what a large function. Look at all these generics, that this type of thing doesn't crash. Alrighty. So in VS Code, I'm gonna GHPR checkout this thing. Get pull yarn, just in case yarn starts. And I'm gonna look through the new tests. We have a to-do here. So I don't know why there's this to-do still left in the code, so I'm just going to ask about it. Why don't we handle this as the first part of a chain? Is that existing? Oop, there we go. Prefer optional chain.test.ts. Yeah, so there's only this new node. Like, why don't we? Okay, I see what they're doing. They're just explicitly saying if there's a TS non-null expression in the properties, then we don't look at it. That makes sense. I would suggest calling this intentionally do not handle. I think it makes sense that we just would explicitly ignore bangs, because they're often a sign of folks doing odd stuff in the type system. Yeah. All right, and then the rest of this is basically the same. Again, if they're, again, what's the status here? We generally don't check in to do code if possible. I'd rather this be a follow-up issue that gets filed. It's just hard to keep track of that stuff. All right. So this, I will admit I cheated. I compared previously. This is pretty similar to the previous pull request. So the difference for the node is if the node's object type is a non-null expression. So this strategy makes sense to me. Cool. So looks good to me. If Brad has time to review, that'd be great. But since this fixes the issue in the original PR and has a test, I'm happy. All right, that's probably one of the more complex things that I'll look at today, which is why I kind of skimmed over it a bunch. But hello, new viewers, chatters. Feel free to chat with me, ask any questions you want in the stream, in the chat on Twitch. Always happy to talk to you. I'm just going to keep going through issues on TypeScript-ESLint. So this one is done. Or I said issues, I meant pull requests. Next up on the list, just going oldest, soonest, is our naming convention rule, adding support for override and async modifiers. What's going on here? There is an issue, enhancement naming convention, add override modifier support. We have a naming convention rule, which you can find on TypeScript-ESLint.io/rules/naming convention that helps enforce naming conventions for everything across a code base. And it's super configurable. There are a lot of examples, even some FAQs, so that's fun. Under the selector options, we have modifiers that you can switch on. So like if you say that modifiers for a particular naming rule only applies to these three, then it'll only match, say, something that is private static read only. So let me find an example. Here we go. When you have a member like, so like a member property or similar, that's got the private modifier and the format camel case, leading underscore is required. So like all private members are expected to be camel case with an underscore. That's just one example of the rule. This issue is saying, I would like it if we could have override. Now, I have personally never used the TypeScript override keyword, but I know that it exists. It's a way to explicitly say in a class that a member of a class like matches to a parent class's thing. Like if you put an override and then mess up, you know what, let me actually, I'm just gonna go to the playground. So TypeScript-ESLint.io/play class bar. So here I have declared these as overrides, but TypeScript sees that it doesn't actually match up to anything in bar. So we do like protected attribute string. Then attribute is allowed, but method now complains because there's nothing matching in bar. Let me know if any of that doesn't make sense, y'all. Anyway, so there is a list of modifiers, and they're asking that we add override and async. I think that makes sense. The issue says override. The pull request also adds async. So, cool. First up, let's tweet about it. Going back to the thing, maybe it's notified. Here we go. Next up. And is this from a person who's got a Twitter? Nope. I'm going to keep this open for later use. Okie dokie. Let's look at the changed files in this pull request, which I just posted in the Twitch chat. All right. So in the docs, they have added override to this list here and async. Looks good. Looks good. variables. Wait, why is variable allowed override async? I don't know that this docs thing here matches, so we'll see. Function can be async. Class property can be override. Class method override, async, yep. Object literal method can be async. Accessors can be override in class. Members can have override and async. Same with properties and methods. That all sounds good to me. Shout out to the difference between a property and a method. A class property is a variable-ish. Like in a class you say like my member equals true, and then a method is a function. All right, at this point I think I should probably check out the PR. HPR checkout. Name of it. Naming convention. All right, naming convention, the file is actually somewhat larger. It's 690 lines. So that's lovely. Let's just go to enums. That's the next file I need to view. Go ahead and put these side by side. So in enums, I see line 105. We have a modifiers enum, and they are adding override and async to those modifiers. I'm seeing this is just how it was declared before. Each one of these gets a new unique number. So this looks good. Excuse me. All right. Moving on, we have naming convention utils schema.ts. What is this? So these are the schemas, the JSON schemas that the rule uses to describe itself. Every ESLint rule that takes in options describes those options in a JSON schema, which is an object that describes how a JSON structure might look. For example, you might say that a filter property is going to be a string that matches some particular regular expression. Or maybe it's either a string or it's an object that has these two required properties on it. That gets this one is a particularly complex schema because it's so super duper configurable. But I see that what they're changing, which is on line 70, is the ability for each of these select schemas to have different properties on them. So the variable like selector is now, in addition to unused, also allowed to have async as a modifier. Okay. We don't need to go too deep into how that works. Just, I think I can make some assumptions based on it, that this maps up to the documentation changes I'd read earlier, that the selectors mapping to their modifiers are getting new ones added. Like functions can also be async now. Variables can be async, although I don't see how that maps up. In fact, I see that in the docs they say variables can be override, but here they don't actually say override. So I also don't see override added in schema.ts. Typo? Right. So we're saying that function can also be async. Member like can be override and async. Class properties are also override. Properties can be both override and async. These all look good to me. Object literal methods can be async. Class methods can be override and async. Yep. And then accessors can be override. By the way, in case you were wondering what an accessor is, it's a getter or setter, I believe. Class example, get member. This is allowed. And if we view the ES tree, oh, that's interesting. It's mentioned as an identifier. It's a class method definition. Huh, okay. Well, anyway. That looks good. Let's look at the actual rule itself. Yay. Naming-convention.ts, line 141. I see we are in get member modifiers, adding in the option for override. If override in node and node.override. I see that's the same pattern that we did before with the read-only keyword. So this is collecting the modifiers for a node that is a property def, an abstract property def, a method, abstract method, or parameter property. Okie dokie. It would have been nice if we did like if node.type. But I guess if the code is already using an if read only in, then an if override in is okay. What is async member or property? This is for any property definition or method definition. Where if property or member node has a value and its value has an async modifier, then it is an async member or property. Okie dokie. And what do we use this for? All right. It's used in two places to say whether something has the async modifier. I guess that makes sense. And then is async variable identifier. So there are a lot of changes to the code that are doing things like if some string is in some member. But what I'd rather do is like, I don't know. It would be nice if there was a method that we could use for each of the things, like utils dot is async, or node can have async, or like is functions like, or something. Because this, I don't know, this like string keyword in isn't like commonly done in our code base. But I don't know. I don't know that there's a better way when you can have like so many different things in the code. I don't know. Anyway, looking through line 253, I see the variable declarator. So this answer is actually earlier. I was wondering like how could a variable be considered async? Well, it's if its value is like, I think it's like if let's my var equals async, like then we would consider this variable declarator to be an async thing. The problem is what happens, oh no, I guess my other var equals, then like each of these has a different name. Okay. I guess that makes sense. Excuse me. That variable names can be selected on. So yeah, a variable name can be async. That is fine with me. Boop. Good. All right, so we have on line 253 that change. where variables collect based on their value, whether they're async. On line 292, we have a change to functions where we add async if noted async. Yep, that looks good. Line 333, same with if noted async on parameters. I guess this region. This region says parameter, but it also is used for function declarations. Interesting. But regardless, that's existing code. And yep, modifiers async looks good. 407 with the properties. 428. Yep. More on the properties. Adding async. Yeah, this code all looks good to me. And then one last thing that they're adding. When we have an abstract method definition that's not computed, where there's a getter or a setter, then we add member modifiers. Why is this being added? Were we not handling this before? And yep, that's accessor. I've been playing around. So here we see that the method definition kind is get. So this is a getter accessor as opposed to a setter. Value, whatever, number, doesn't matter. That is kind set. Yep. All right. I think I saw they made a comment here. Yeah, don't know if this wasn't added on purpose previously. I'm surprised that it was. Surprised that this would be necessary. I'd be surprised that this might be necessary. We previously the code should already be handling getters and setters. Yeah, so like, is there a get check? Like something that's like a get or a set? Here we go. Oh, literally 2 lines prior. So maybe this is just a separate bug fix. TS abstract method definition. Yeah, I see that there's already method definition and then an otherwise identical abstract method definition selector. So I'm guessing this is a bug fix outside of the scope of this PR. This might just be a bug fix outside of the, this might be a bug fix outside of the scope of this PR. Are you able to repro? I guess I can just check. What is an abstract method definition? So if we have an abstract class, for those who haven't used abstracts before, it's a way of saying in a class that some member is going to implement the thing that you're talking about. So like here, abstract get member, whoops. We're saying that some child class is going to describe it. Yep, this is an abstract method definition. All right. So I think this is a bug fix outside of the scope of this PR. Could you file an issue to describe it? Yes. All right. So otherwise, all they're doing in this PR really is adding logic to add a new modifiers flag to the existing logic that collects what modifiers any particular node has. What's good? Hi, Cross. How you doing? Thanks for joining. So here we have a whole bunch of new test cases that they're adding. Oh boy. One of my least favorite things to review is dynamic test case generation. Infamous Matt, hello. Thanks for joining, y'all. You know what? To be honest, this is not the most exciting stuff that I've looked at. I'm hoping the next things are going to be more fun to tackle. I feel like this one is a lot of going through the same changes over and over. Yeah. But I'm all right. So why are they adding... Thanks for asking, by the way. Why are they adding this? Union of all case error configs with message ID as discriminant property for type and array. What are they using this for? Create expected test case errors with data. What is this? I don't know that I want this. Also, why are we no formatting? What is this? Create test case errors with data. What? Okay, so this is taking in a list of, or an array of this thing with a to do, which I don't follow. Sorry, I don't follow this to do. What's the intent? Is it blocking the PR being merged? All right, so each item in this array that this test case generator takes in is either this message ID unexpected underscore or an object with does not match format, a name, a type, and expected formats. So when we take in the data, so we're mapping the error case config to an object that just changes the message ID or the error config dot type. Throw error. First of all, it's supposed to be throw new error. Gotcha. So we take the error config and then we're just mapping it. I'm going to say I don't really want this. There's a good reason why we generally don't do this. We generally try to avoid test case generators like this. They obscure the code under, or the test cases, which is already an issue in the naming convention test to be in. Also make it so our our linting on formatting on test cases. Well, you also make it harder for formatting test cases due to text strings that should be formatted. Since this just maps this function, I'm trying to describe that like this function doesn't do much. Like it just maps from one object to another object with the same number of total properties. If you just like a 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Upperts an object with roughly the same number of properties. I'd say let's remove it and inline the test cases directly. Another issue here is that we generally do one expected area per test case. So like we won't have a giant class like this, what they're adding here, as a single test case. We'll generally split these up. We generally try to split up test cases so that each test case exercises one behavior. For naming conventions, that's one test case, or that's one named, like kind of named thing, property, etc. per test case. Test cases generally only give one failure at a time, so it can be hard. It can be annoying to keep fixing them as code changes. You rerun tests. Also, it's hard visually to track between big code snippets and the expected errors list. So, yeah, this is another example where they've made like one really big test case and then you have this giant list of errors. All right, I'll note this PR was around for a while. Sorry for taking so long to get to this review, but the code mostly looks great. Just a couple clarifications on docs and cleaning up the test to be a little more independent. Thanks. All right, I got through it. Whew. What a fun one. All right, I'll refresh this. And next up, React hooks exhaustive depths. Okay, this one should be a little more fun. This one is about the TypeScript-ESLint website at TypeScript-ESLint.io. It is a React site. We use the very lovely Docusaurus static site generator. Docusaurus is a static site generator. Let's see if... Oh no, there's no link on the bottom. Well, it's a static site generator that's open source, and it's based around the concept of docs content or content-oriented websites, where it's really good for like websites like ours that have like docs pages that link to each other and have a sidebar and table of contents. Like this type of stuff, we got a lot of it for free from Docusaurus. So I'm a big fan. Anyway, we also have the ability to have custom components in our website. For example, our playground is a whole bunch of React components. And this giant thing did not come for free from Docusaurus. The initial versions of our playground did not actually enable all the React hooks lint rules. So that's getting enabled now. So I'm gonna, next up, this thing from our friends who does have a Twitter. Thank you, Raquel. Awesome. To lints the website's React components more thoroughly. Love me some sparkle emojis. Okie dokie. So the change here is that they enabled the React hooks exhaustive depths rule. That is a rule that New York. I don't know if you can hear the siren outside. I hate this stupid city. I'm so excited to move away from it. It's a cesspool. The React hooks exhaustive depths rule. Here, let me link this PR in the chat. It's a great lint rule. It enforces the rules of hooks. You don't call hooks from non-React functions. Ooh, I'm going to... I don't really hate it like that. I'm going to Philadelphia on Thursday. That's where we're moving. New York has a lot of positives. It's got a lot of stuff in it, a lot of cool people. It's nice, the convenience of living near things, but it's expensive as all heck, and it's noisy as all heck. Like, I'm constantly getting interrupted by my streams. I had a stream where someone got shot outside my window, which is traumatic for everyone involved, especially them, and then also was like a whole thing. Thanks. Shout out any fellow New Yorkers or Philadelphians. Anyone around here? Yeah. So exhaustive depths says when you have an effect in React, the depths array. Another thing that happens in New York is people just shout on the street. That's a thing. You live in LA. Everything is nicer with money. LA is expensive too, man. Everything. Yeah. So when you have like an effect or callback or some sort of React hook that takes in a dependencies or deps array, the linter rule will enforce that you're passing in all the things that do in fact change, or that do need to be in that deps list. So I'm just going to go through and make sure that all these deps changes match up. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I would love to be very rich in New York. Like, that seems like an extremely positive experience. Similar to how a lot of people think, I would have loved to live in the Middle Ages with royalty and castles. Like, no, you would have loved to be a royalty person in the Middle Ages. The average person was not happy and would very much prefer to live in the 21st century. Okay. So AST viewer ts.tsx, lines 50 or so. We have an effect where we create a TS serializer and set it as the model whenever any of these things changes. It is unfortunate how many things are now getting passed in. And I will have to go through later and make sure that the behavior of the site works. But all these things are set up as state that... Wait a second. Why are we doing this? Why? Interesting. This component, I think what's happening here is that this component is assuming that these things can only be initialized after it renders, or like when it's first rendered. Like, my instinct was, well, why don't we just do like const syntax kind equals extract enum window.ts.syntax kind. But we allow you to switch between TypeScript versions on the website. Go to TypeScript-ESLint.io/play, and I have the DevTools open. Doc to right, doc bottom. Geez, I don't know what just happened there. And if I do like window.ts.version, it's 4.8.3. But then if I change TypeScript to an older version, window.ts.version is 4.1.5. So these actually do need to be in the component itself. I think, like, looking back, what would have been nice is if like we have like a prof that gets passed of like ts, type of window.ts, like whatever this is, or like a context that stores TypeScript. But you know what? That's existing code, and for now, I think this is reasonable. So what they've done is just manually add in these flags to the deps array, which is fine. That's what is supposed to happen. Moving on. Would love to hear if anyone else here has opinions on hooks. I know they're not as popular as they used to be, but I still love them. Copy to clipboard is a callback that previously never changed, even if set copy linked changed. Set copy link, and then clicking to go to definition, is the result of use debounced toggle, which is a custom hook that rewrote. Now I always forget what happens if you call use callback with no deps. Let me look up in the React docs. Now the beta React docs are upcoming, and I want to see the use callback docs here. Here we go. I'll post that in the chat. Dependencies. The list of all reactive values referenced inside the FN code include prop state, blah, blah, blah. What happens if you leave it out, though? Does not say. Use callback. Maybe the old docs do. Use callback. And doesn't say if you don't pass in deps. use callback without dependency array. What happens? Skipping the snippet. Is a memoized function which does not compute updated states. All right, so use callback. So it's just a dependencies array of size 0 then. Or then this answer says, I think it's the same logic. So if there are no dependencies passed, inline function will execute every time. So they're not sure. Thanks. This person says, for both use memo and use callback, which is essentially a special case use memo, if the second argument is an empty array, the value will be memorized once and always returned. If the second argument is omitted, the value will never be memoized, and then the use callback doesn't do anything. Ooh. Oh my god, you know what? I misread. There is a deps thing here. I just misread it. And no one called me out on it. Y'all are too polite. So there is a dependencies array. I'm being silly. And in fact, they're right. The TypeScript definitions do say you need at least 2 arguments. Or specifically 2. All right, so this set copy link is recreated whenever timeout or value changes. Value is the T in here, and value is false. All right, so this is good. This copy link to keyboard is a safe deps thing. I'll also note though that we should write a lint rule for this eventually. You don't need to explicitly call your generics there. They're false. In fact, we have a pending to do in TypeScript-ESLint somewhere in the issue tracker for this, but we're blocked because there's a set of TypeScript APIs we need that they don't expose that would let us do that. Like this code, TypeScript can tell that it's a Boolean state. You don't need to explicitly say it's a use with Boolean. But that's just my rant. Anyway, moving on. Option selector has a second one. Copy markdown to clipboard is a callback that says if load. You know what? I know there's a new React API that's going to come out called useEvent that's better suited to this case, but not here yet. Oh well. Anyway, this adds set copy markdown to the deps list for copy markdown to clipboard, which is another result from use debounce toggle. So that looks good. Oh boy, now we have a refactoring. That's exciting. 87 unloaded is use callback. Previously, it was in line, as you see on line 153 in the PR diff, but now it's a use callback here, and it's because use sandbox services.ts was being recreated at every render. Fascinating. So onloaded gets passed to loading editor, which passes its props directly to the use sandbox services hook. And props.onloaded is getting passed to the deps here. This big ol' effect. Thank you, previous owners, for making a huge effect. I'm sure it's necessary. Okay. So now we're memoizing this onloaded callback because otherwise it was causing this effect to run a whole bunch of times. Because I'm betting they had to update use sandbox services TS in this PR. Yep, they did props.onloaded. Okay. So that's cool. Wow, so many things to change. This looks good. Moving on. Elements.tsx. Line 33. We are saying change whenever data.model.range specifically changes. And then on select node. So I'm just going to have to make sure that I've got a list of test cases to check. So changing TS version still works. Hovering over elements in the AST viewer, that should still work. I'm going to do like a sweep of the playground after this just to make sure it all still works. So those test cases specifically I'll have to remember. Line 50 is expanded is also a dependency for this effect. All right, seems reasonable. Under property name.tsx, destructuring props to avoid stale values. On click props. Okay, I mean, I would say normally just put it in line, but that's just me. All right. So, are we over at clicking elements and property names? Yeah, this all looks reasonable. No more stale closures. All right, we're about halfway there. Whoop. Simple item, 23. On select node is now also a callback. On simple item, what is simple item? Where's that used? It's under elements, complex item. Okay. Whatever, doesn't really matter. Depth change looks good. Similar thing here. Switching from props to closured version. All right, same here. Switching from props dot to just the variables. Same here. All right, now stuff that's got a little more juice. Loaded editor, line 78. So this update markers callback never actually got updated, but now we're saying it updates whenever code actions change, on markers change, sandbox instances editor.monaco.editor. Okay. What is code actions? Code actions is a ref that current. So this never changes. Thank you, rules of hooks. On markers change is a prop. So loaded editor is rendered as a child of loading editor, which is rendered by the playground. On markers change is set markers, which is a callback to update state. So it should be referentially the same. Nice. All right, and then the rest of these are just adding in the sandbox instances. What is tabs on line 105? Tabs is another piece of state. Great. Which has an initial value of an object that has a bunch of stuff in it. Okie dokie. So yeah, this all looks good. Wait, what is this change on line 127? Const lint editor equals debounce, and then we immediately call it. Okay. Was this working before? Why are we setting it as a variable now? Oh, we are calling it immediately? This is weird. So I'm gonna copy this as something to look at. Very spooky. And then we have a whole bunch of adepts added, so that's lovely. But I also see we have two missing. There are still 2 depths complaints later on in this file. Line 283 and line 292. Is it, or did you mean to tackle those also? Why are those not tackled? All right. So I have viewed this file. Next, use debounced. Toggle. Yep, this is the change we looked at before where they're changing on both the value and the... Actually, wait a second. We change whenever the initial value changes. Yeah, because this set state call changes based off the initial value. Okay. This is why people have started to push back against React hooks. They can get kind of convoluted, a little confusing. Looks like the PR author also changed checkbox.tsx. So instead of a ref and effect, they're using callbacks. What does I didn't know that indeterminate is a thing you could do for HTML elements. When set overrides the rendering of checkbox controls so that the current value is not visible. Okay. All right, and checkbox ref is just a ref. Okay. Agreed. This is better than an effect and a ref. And one last thing is the modal, which destructures props in this way. Okay. So this looks good. I had a couple of questions, but otherwise I think it's ready to be tested. Oops, did not mean to click out there. So let's look at the deploy preview. We use Netlify, which gives us a nice little deploy preview on each PR commit. It's just looking through the playground. Var hello equals true. Const bad value, making sure I still get TypeScript. Equals 3. String, still should get TypeScript complaints. Yep. Then let's add the visual. Ooh, this is a new bug. Huh. I missed this in a previous PR review. No var. What's the rule? Excuse me. No var. Yep. Oh my god. My word. Sorry, my hiccups are getting bad. This all looks good so far. Fixer works. Whee. All right. Number or null. So this should still be a complaint. Strict null checks are true. Why is this? Why is that being allowed? Strict null checks are true. Why are you allowing this? What is happening? In the regular TypeScript playground, if I do that, is it gonna complain? Do I have strict enabled? Strict null checks, strict. Oh my god, it's number or undefined. So here we go. Now it's complaining. All right. Undefined is not assignable type number. Good, good. Yep, there we go. That's better. And if I turn strict null checks false, then this should no longer complain. Great. So I was going to check that changing TypeScript version works. I'm on TypeScript 4.8.3. Are there any syntax features? In order to test that the version switching works, I want to see if there are any new syntax things that I can check on. 4.8 doesn't have new syntax. That's easy to add. Let's see. I mean, I guess I can use something fancy here. Let's see, this should work. This is allowed. And if I go down to like 4.2.3, there we go. TypeScript now complains. Go and back. Awesome. All right, now in the AST viewer, making sure that I can click on these things. Click to expand or why is this not toggling? Hang, oop. I'm trying to click on it. It's not working. Is that a bug on the main site? So I think the bug is if you currently have focused a piece of code, you can't collapse it anymore, or a parent of it. Huh. Nifty. Yeah, that's an introduced bug. Look at that. No bueno. Let me see if I can get a recording and play. So here we go. Record. And then on the main site, previously was working. Okay, dokie. So that's an issue. So something with clicking elements in the AST viewer. Good thing I checked those. Let's go to, I wonder where that was, what's most relevant. Issue somewhere around AST elements, or introduce bug somewhere in AST elements. You can no longer collapse an element that's visually focused. See if I can desktop screen recording. This was the one. C recording. The first 3/4 of time is in the deploy preview, where clicking a node in the source code to expand on the right and trying to collapse is not allowed. Uploading. Come on, GitHub. Is it still going? Are we still uploading here? Guess I failed to open this before uploading, so I don't know how that's going. Just start this again. Oh, that worked almost instantly. Remember when GitHub didn't have inline movies you could play? What a world. All right, so that's one bug. So changing TS version and then hovering and clicking elements, we found the one bug. The last thing is checking the console for editor linting triggered. So I just want to make sure linting triggered happens once. All right, so I make a change. There we go. it took half a second after I stopped typing. Nice. All right, that looks good. Cool. So code looks great. Thanks for sending this in. Just blocked on the introduced bug around property name, around property AST property expansion. Whew, that was a fun one. Labels, waiting for a response. All right. All right, we got one more PR that I want to take a look at today. Allow using void as a default type for a generic argument, ... I'll also note someone sent in this GitHub workflow security hardening thing. This, I can't tell if this is spam or not. It's just a bunch of explicit permission changes. To me, it seems kind of spammy. Like, they just, if you look up GitHub workflow security hardening on all of GitHub, and then go to issues, you can see it's in a whole bunch of places. If you look at closed ones, a lot of them are merged, some of them aren't. I don't know, like, I have to look deeper into it. They posted a bunch of useful links in the OP. This Sasha Shura person, Alex. Which, sure, why not? Anyway, the actual pull request I want to go over here from Kazizi55 is actually a feature, so I'm pumped about this. Last one for now. Let's take a look. By the way, since we're heading towards the end of the stream, hit me up if you have any questions, things you want to talk about, stuff around TypeScript or ESLint or any of this stuff. Always happy to chat. No invalid void type bug does not allow using void as a default type for generic arguments. When you have this particular flag set for the no invalid void type rule, we should no longer get a complaint in this code. Let's go to the code itself. So one of the nice features we have on the playground is that whenever you have a rule complaint, it's got a link to the docs. So this rule that we're complaining about, no invalid void type, disallows the void type outside of generic or return types. Void is this type in TypeScript that indicates that a function did not return any value, which is different from undefined, which means that it returned a value that you're supposed to be able to use, and that value is the literal undefined. So void is a different thing from that. It indicates that you don't care what the function returned. It's useless. Ignore it. It could be something, it could be nothing. And the rule also has allow in generic type arguments an option so that you can do things like this, where like you have a function or like a class like promise, where promise needs to be able to say that its return type is void. So by default, the rule would complain about something like promise void. Here, the rule no longer does because allow in generic type arguments is enabled. But they pointed out that the default value for generic, setting it to void, does not respect the allow in generic type arguments setting. Let me just post this in the Twitch chat. So that's unfortunate. And they sent a pull request that should fix it too. I think this was just an oversight in the original PR to add allow in generic type arguments. All right, so just looking at files changed. This looks vaguely familiar. So they check if the generic type parameter extends void. Oh boy, what is this app brief thing? Let me open this in VS Code. All right. No invalid void type.ts, line 130. So they added 2 app briefs, and there are 2 existing app briefs in the code base. So I guess that's fine. Checks if the generic type parameter extends void. What is check extended void used to do? Takes an annoyed, which is a void keyword, and a parent node. And it, what? So if the parent node's constraint, wait, what? Okay, so we're saying if the parent node's constraint isn't a TS void keyword, or the parent node's default range is not the same as the node's range, return, otherwise complain. I think another way to write this would be like if parent node dot default not equal to node, because there we go. Yeah, so we generally try not to JSON.stringify in our rules. That's kind of a sign that you're comparing things that are different. JSON.stringify also isn't super fast, so if this rule needs to run on like hundreds of files, doing JSON.stringify, expensive computations like that might bog it down. So in this case, I'd say instead of JSON stringifying, it feels like they're just trying to check whether the parent node default is the same as the void keyword. But also, isn't the constraints type the same as the TS void keyword type? So I'm just going to pop this into the playground to take a look. Let's resize this a bit, and let's set the AST viewer. So here we have the TS type parameter with a default, and the default is the void keyword. So why are we, so the extends would be here. So we're getting a complaint on that too also. So that's cool. But why do we even care about the constraints? What are we changing in this? What? I'm confused. Check extended void. So we allow t equals void if allow and generic type arguments is specified. Is TS type parameter. I'm going to duplicate these screens. So if we allow generic type arguments and is TS type parameter, which is just saying the node type is AST node type, so TS type parameter, and the parent's default type is a void keyword, then we extend check extended void. But why do we care about the constraints? Is this like a copy and paste thing from somewhere else? Like, why do we care about the constraint here? Why do we care about parent node.constraints? Shouldn't we exclusively care about parent node.default? Also, it seems like what this is trying to do, it seems like this is trying to check whether parent node.default is node. You can do that directly. So checking whether parent node.default are range, triple equals, JSON.stringify, or rather just triple equals node range. Am I missing something? All right. Also, init this is TS type parameter function is only used in one place. Pretty sure if we just, whoops, pardon me, I clicked the wrong window. I've got a whole bunch of conference CSPs open. So I'm pretty sure if we just remove it and then fill in yep. I think you can, there's no need to make an extra function for it in just inline node parent type. You can, where this would be called below. All right. But this is also, I'm just looking like, this is not technically an extended void. This is more of checking whether it's check default void. That's what this really is for. Defaults to check default void. Nits, this isn't checking extension, no. All right, and then the last thing is, what happens if we just remove this altogether? Someone is supposed to be checking, I guess, yeah, this is a special case. So, okay, I think it's reasonable to set up a specific special case function for these things. But I think what we actually are trying to check here is if the parent node dot default is not equal to node default, like I think wait, then the node we're actually complaining about is, there we go. So we're saying when we have a void keyword that's a child of a parent node, then we only report if it's not the default. So in other words, when you see a void keyword that's the child of a type parameter, if it is the default for the type parameter, then we can skip checking. Otherwise, we do report. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this simplified code into a comment so they understand what I'm saying. If I'm understanding right, then the function body could look like this. Okie dokie. So that's the source for the rule. Now let's look at the tests. So the big thing here is that they are looking at tests that should previously have passed, or should previously have caused errors, and now should just pass. So I see this one, good. They are marking as a pass. And declare function, I don't know if they previously, here we go, yep, that was a declared. So that's a pass now. And other places that had 2 failures now only have the 1 failure. Good, like extends void equals void, should only have the 1 failure now. All right, getting closer. The tests all look good. The tests all look good, but the source code confused me a bit. I think we can simplify it a little, be more clear. Yeah, okay. Thanks. always say thank you because people are donating their time for your project, and it's very nice of them. Cool. Oop, waiting response. All right, that is my PRQ for the day. There are 4 more pull requests remaining in the queue. 2 of them are breaking changes that have like been approved for the most part. One I actually just reviewed. I don't know why it's still in my search. I have to fix my search, I guess. Oh wait, actually, we have a label for this. 1 approval. And I filtered that out in my search. Great. There we go. And then this security hardening that I'm just going to research outside of the stream. So that's my stream for the day. Thank you for watching, folks. Word of warning, I'm going to ask for a recommendation of who I should, what is the term? Raid? Yeah, raid after this. So if there's anyone you know on Twitch who you'd like to recommend, please let me know. Love to hear it. In the meantime, I want to promote myself a little bit. I'm a full-time open source maintainer. That means I don't have a full-time job. I'm doing all these things kind of as a volunteer. So it would be nice to get paid for this. I have a sponsorship profile set up on GitHub. So if you think I do good work, if TypeScript-ESLint or my other projects are useful to you, then please give me money so I can continue to do them. I only have a finite amount of savings and I'm blowing through them. Additionally, TypeScript-ESLint.io has links to sponsor us. If we are a useful project to you, I really hope we are, because I really hope you're writing TypeScript and linting it, then please donate, become a financial sponsor, contributor. That donation is really important, and it helps us continue to sustainably develop TypeScript-ESLint. The only thing worse than the current situation in linting TypeScript code would be to not have a linter at all. So that's me. Also, I wrote a book on TypeScript, learningtypescript.com. I just redid the copy on this website. The #1 TypeScript book for JavaScript developers out today. I think it's #1. My mom says it's #1. I think you'll like it. You can get it on all these great retailers. It is an O'Reilly book, so their website has more links. Please read it. Please let me know how you like it. It's pretty good, I think. Yeah, so that's me. Thanks for watching, y'all. I really appreciate you joining in. I see I have a new set of followers as of today, so thanks, y'all. And since no one had any more questions, I'm going to raid one of my favorite people, Some Antics Dev, Ben Myers, who is a very knowledgeable web accessibility, JavaScript, HTML in general person. So I will see all y'all later today, or later this week. Cheers.